Tonight on 16 by 9, he's Canada's most famous polygamist.
There is not one thing wrong with 3 consenting adults being a family unit.
But is this man of many wives a criminal or just following his faith?
A polygamous cop is going to come out and arrest me? To me, that's the ultimate of religious persecution. 16
by 9 goes inside Bountiful. And then, the real estate industry is changing, with more and more sellers going agent-free.
About $18,000 we actually saved.
Are real estate agents playing dirty?
Who's really knocking down your signs?
And standing in the way of sale-by-owner business? Here's Carolyn Jarvis.
Hi, and thanks for joining us for a brand new season of 16 by 9. Winston Blackmore's name is synonymous with controversy. A polygamist with more than 130 kids, Blackmore has been the focus of investigations for years. But now, a judge in BC's Supreme Court is expected to decide any day now whether polygamy should remain illegal. And on the eve of that ruling, we go inside Bountiful for a glimpse of Winston's world.
Go for a radio check. You ready? Seatbelts on? So you can see our little Bountiful. That's Bountiful right there.
7,000 feet in the air is not where we thought we'd be having a conversation with Canada's most famous polygamist.
Look at that elk trail right there.
But as it turns out, there was a lot we didn't know about Winston Blackmore and his way of life.
Changed a lot over the years, eh? I hope it's gotten better.
Below us, nestled in the southeastern corner of BC, lay Bountiful, a community only minutes from the town of Creston and the Idaho border.
Boundary County traffic, 737.
It's here, in the sky, that Winston gets away from it all. Away from the police investigations and the prodding that have dogged him for the past 20 years.
There's one on land.
Our introduction to Winston and his town was a hesitant one. We were warned to expect no trespassing signs, women who would hide their kids in bushes at our arrival. Much to our surprise, there was none of that. In fact, even finding the traditional pioneer-style clothing that's often associated with this town was hard to spot at first. That's because Bountiful is changing. Do you think Canadians have a real sense of understanding about how life works here in Bountiful?
I don't know. I'm not trying to sell my life and my lifestyle on anyone. You've got to kind of understand that. You know, there's lots of different faiths I don't understand.
But Winston's lifestyle raises a lot of eyebrows, and it all comes down to numbers. One man at the top, 15 wives, and more than 130 kids.
Hi, girls. How are you?
Polygamy is illegal in Canada. At least it is today. The law itself is in question in an historic case being heard in BC's Supreme Court. A judge is expected to rule any day now on whether prohibiting polygamy is a violation of one's rights. Do you worry at all about the outcome of this trial, though? Because it could
actually,
be...
no, I'm not participating in it.
But it will impact you.
Well, it may.
It will.
Yeah, well, how will it? If they
uphold the law...
If they uphold the law...
You could be convicted.
Sure, it could, I guess. Who's going to start going and hunting? A polygamous cop is going to come out and arrest me? A guy who has 3 things on the go? You know, I mean, that is, to me, that's the ultimate of religious persecution.
How are you?
Good morning. Good. How are you doing?
Good. Are you surprised to be here?
Winston himself has already been the focus of multiple investigations. In 1990 and again in the mid-2000s, ending with his arrest in 2009. He and another man in the community, Jimmy Oler, were charged with polygamy, but those charges were eventually stayed.
I think that every police officer and every judge and every teacher and every adult should just take a look at themselves, and before they go and try to slam dunk the little polygamous communities, wherever they are, they should ask themselves, am I a polygamist? Do I have 2 ongoing relationships?
The tenets of Winston's faith are based on the principles of the Mormon Church and its founder, Joseph Smith. In his book of Revelation, Smith teaches that his followers can only reach the highest kingdom in heaven through plural marriage. And while the mainstream Church of Latter-day Saints ended the practice in 1890, thousands in the U.S. and Canada hold true to Smith's founding principles and practice polygamy in defiance of the law.
I think that it makes good people into better people. You've seen that with some of my ladies. But do you know what? I never made up the principles of our faith.
Polygamy for different men means different things. Some only take 2 wives. At the height, Winston had 25. Today, many women have left him, but 15 remain. 13 live with him here in Bountiful, while 2 others live across the border in northern Idaho. Zelpha Chatwin is Winston's 10th wife.
When would this have been taken?
That was like a year after I was married.
And there you are, second to the left, middle row.
Yep.
13 wives in this picture. How many of them are still here?
8 of them.
8. 8 of 13 are still here?
Yeah. Hurry.
Zelpha married Winston in a celestial ceremony on the same day as her sister Marcia, both from a polygamist family in Arizona.
Is that odd or is that nice? Sharing a husband with your sister?
It's actually quite nice because Marcia and I are really close because of it.
Zelpha has 7 children, while Marcia has 6.
The oldest is just about 16 in a month. 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 5, and 1.
This fall, she's heading to college, studying to become a teacher, something that wouldn't have happened here a decade ago. A change Zelpha believes most aren't aware of.
I think if they could realize, how much we are just part of the mainstream life of society, then I think they'd probably be surprised, yeah.
People may also be surprised at meeting Winston's daughter, Sally.
You've got your belly button pierced.
Yeah.
Most people don't think of Bountiful as girls who are wearing makeup with their belly button pierced.
No. Well, a lot of people have a messed up view of us. They don't know what we are. They judge off what other people say.
Is Bountiful changing? It seems far more modern than I
Oh,
ever...
it is. Obviously. I mean, everything changes. We were way different in 2002 than we are now.
Back then, Bountiful was a closed-off community with tight controls. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to even pick out which of these teens is from a polygamist family. No matter their upbringing, these are all young adults in a period of discovery, finding their first jobs, approaching graduation, and for some, dating.
I've dated before, just
You've dated?
recently, yeah.
After you turned 18?
I have a boyfriend right now.
You do?
Yeah. The biggest thing is even people in Creston think that we don't have a choice, that we're going to be forced to be married right when we turn 18 or even before. And that's definitely not true.
You have a choice.
We do have a choice. We definitely have a choice.
There are some teens who are open to plural marriage, but most we spoke to said polygamy isn't for them. Like 15-year-old Dana, another of Winston's daughters.
I just believe that if I be faithful and I do what I know is right, then I don't have to be in a polygamous marriage to get to heaven.
When you want to get married, how will that happen?
Fall in love. Find someone who actually likes me.
Will you date?
Yes, definitely.
So you're going to date someone first and then get engaged?
It'll be very normal. Hey guys.
Normal because this too is new in Bountiful. Marriages used to be assigned by the prophet. But in Winston's family, there's been a shift, and perhaps not one he approves of.
We don't court in our society, or we're not supposed to.
But your daughters are dating?
Yeah, well, they are to a point.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that at the end of the day, if they want to make a choice in their life, I want them to make a very good choice in their life. There's some kids that don't want our way of life.
So if one of your sons and daughters or daughters comes to you and says, Dad, I don't want to live the plural life. I want to go to Toronto, work in the financial markets,
Maybe get married in my late 30s, maybe not. How do you feel about that?
It's just fine if she's old enough to make that choice.
But while Winston's family shows signs of modernization, they only account for about half the people in Bountiful. The other half still maintains those strict rules, keeps to itself, and most importantly, follows another leader.
Next, two leaders, two sides.
He likes to govern people with fear.
The religious divide that split this town in two.
Bountiful is a community divided, not down the middle, but one home next to the other, each with a different set of rules. It didn't start out this way. In the beginning, everyone here went to the same church, their kids to the same school.
That's the one we divided from. And then...
So that's their school.
Yeah.
But there was a shift and a power struggle in the late 90s when their prophet in the U.S., Rulon Jeffs, fell ill. His son, Warren Jeffs, quietly took over the reins, and the church began to change.
So many things weren't allowed anymore, like no social activities, no plays, no programs. As a group, you could do things with your families, but not as a group. And so it was more, became very closed society.
Jeffs kept warning that the end of the world was near and that his followers had to be in a plural marriage in order to make it to the celestial kingdom. But the apocalypse never came, and all the while, Warren Jeffs was becoming more radical and more controlling. So Winston and his family pulled out of the church and created their own congregation.
It was not how our faith should go, and so I quit.
Winston called it quitting, but Warren Jeffs called it something else, excommunication, claiming to have kicked Winston out of the church. The bitter divide tore families apart, separating children from parents, sisters from brothers. It's been 10 years, and most haven't spoken since.
I mean, this was our whole community garden right here. They've taken that over.
Today, about 500 people, mostly in Canada, are part of Winston's congregation, while 10,000 others follow Warren Jeffs, some in Canada, most in the U.S. Jeff's congregation became known as the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS.
I think that he is a person who likes to govern people with fear. And I think that he's afraid of anybody taking over his position, so he likes to threaten them often and forbid them, and which I think he thinks will keep his people together.
And his people remain faithful, despite the fact Warren Jeffs is now serving a life sentence in a Texas jail, convicted this past summer on 2 counts of child sexual assault.
You ladies just don't know how men out in the world are. They're not here.
We're so glad we don't know.
Audio tapes released during his trial paint a haunting picture. Tapes in which Jeffs is heard instructing his child brides on how to please him sexually.
You have to know how to be excited sexually and to be excited, to administer that comfort and strength. And a woman is a comfort and helps renew me through that sexual contact.
What's more, Warren Jeffs' priesthood records disclosed at the trial indicate that at least 3 of his underage brides were Canadian, young girls taken to the U.S. to marry him at only 12 and 13 years old. What's your take on the Jeffs conviction?
I've really tried to not pay attention to it except for the last couple of days, and then none of us could not. Like, we had to go and look when it actually came out what they were up to.
Surprise you?
Oh. It hurt me.
You have a lot of family members who still believe that he is the prophet.
Apparently. But you know what, that conversation should be for them, not me.
Despite the fact the split was nearly a decade ago, there is a simmering tension in this town. Winston's family refers to Jeff's followers as the other side, or war knights. And while Winston's congregation adopts a more modern lifestyle, the FLDS still keeps the traditional dress, the long swooping hair, and the tight controls of Jeff's leadership. Over the course of 2 months, we have tried several times now to speak with members of the FLDS here in the Creston Valley, but our requests for an on-camera interview have been turned down. As one elder in the community put it, there are serious consequences when Warren Jeff's followers speak out. The brief glimpses we saw of Jeff's followers are about as much as their relatives on Winston's side do too. Two groups, as different as they are alike, living in the shadow of the Purcell Mountains, both calling Bountiful home.
Next.
There's plenty of women in the world that one night in that month is too many.
The balancing act of marriage with 15 sister wives.
If you've ever been intimidated by the notion of feeding, say, a dozen people for Thanksgiving dinner, try this on for size. Sunday dinner at the Blackmores. The biggest meal of the week feeds anywhere between 200 to 300 people. The sister wives take turns staging this production. This week is Leah and Sharon's. The preparation begins the night before. By daybreak, the baking begins. Homemade rolls by the hundreds. How many mouths do you feed for breakfast every day?
Marcia has taken on the role of the cook mom, so it's about probably 100 children every morning she makes breakfast for.
100 kids.
Right.
It's Monday, and a shipment of tomatoes has arrived. 3,200 pounds of them. It will take 2 12-hour days, and all the girls pitching in to finish. Enough tomato juice to hopefully last through to next summer. The one thing you won't find in this kitchen is a man. The odd boy wanders in and quickly wanders out, but this is a community based on gender roles. To find the men, you have to go to the mill. Winston's company, J.R. Blackmore and Sons, manufactures grape stakes and fence posts. So this is a grape stake?
Yeah, so it goes through that machine and it makes it into a dowel. And we've been making these things, we've made millions of them since '84.
Everyone who works here is related to Winston in some way. Tell me again, which one is your son?
Dave, right there. This right here is Kevin Blackmore. He's my brother Kevin's oldest son. It's Randy, my brother Guy's son.
According to Winston, no one in Bountiful is on social assistance, which is why this mill is a big part of putting the food you just saw on the table. Kids, meanwhile, spend their time at school 4 days a week.
Okay, what's an adjective?
But on Fridays and Saturdays, the boys come here with their dad to learn how it's all done.
I'm going to coach you through it, so it's just like I did it. I'll come around that side.
These 4 boys, 13 to 16 years old, are all Winston's sons, all from different mothers. But what happens next for these boys is a point of controversy. Polygamist families have been accused of casting teenage boys aside, since the math of every man taking multiple wives just doesn't add up. Boys who are sent off to fend for themselves are known as the Lost Boys.
I work long and hard to take care of my family. I have 3 big kids that are 18 years old. This year, I'm going to help go stop living at Dad's place and go get jobs. I'm going to do that for them. And you know, I hope some media outfit doesn't come and go, oh, the lost boys of Bountiful. Lost?
Whatever you call it, the life of a teenage boy in a polygamist family is different than most. At the trial in BC's Supreme Court, men spoke of being sent to work for Winston back in the 90s for next to nothing.
I call it Warren's boot camp, because that's where his best indoctrinated, brainwashed people came from.
But the boys who were shipped up there, it was kind of a work camp, reform camp, keep them busy doing nothing but work at night and day so they can't go off and be bad. And we got I think $60 Canadian every 2 weeks. We got $120 Canadian every month.
And while some teenage boys stay with the church and marry multiple women, again, the math is suspect. Hundreds of women and children live here, but there are fewer than a dozen men. It begs the question, where have the rest gone? Numbers like that, one man at the helm with so many women, mean not all the wives can have time with their husband. And as one of Winston's wives told us, that breeds jealousy. If you have 20 wives and there's 30 days in a month, you might only see some of them one night in that month.
Yeah, but you know what? There's plenty of women in the world that one night in that month is too many.
And there's plenty of women who would say, it's not enough, though.
Well, there is, but that's a question you should be asking them, not me.
I have, and some say they need more of you.
Yeah, well, then they should ought to come help me make posts.
Some women are okay with the way things are. Do you feel like you get enough time with the man who's your husband when he has so many other wives to pay attention to?
I feel like I do, and definitely, yes, I do. I'm very content and happy in my relationship.
How often do you see him?
Well, I don't keep track. I see him every day because I live around here, right? So I do see him every day. And there probably is other women there with me, but it still feels to me like close time, so.
Are there other women who feel like perhaps they don't get enough time?
There may, and obviously some have because they've chosen to choose not this lifestyle anymore. I'm sure that may be the reason why.
Dana's mum, Ruth, is one of those women. She left when the neglect became too much. Her testimony shown in court in the BC polygamy trial.
I was pregnant for the 7th time, knowing that I was doing this again all by myself. I wanted a relationship. And he pretty much had outright said that he definitely would not work on a relationship with any one of us.
Love between husband and wife, is that important?
Sure it is. And it's greatly important as far as I'm concerned. I love my folks.
So is having this many wives and this many children a crime or Winston's religious right? That question is at the center of the argument being heard in BC's Supreme Court.
Next, a town and its faith.
Welcome on this beautiful Sabbath morning.
On trial.
At the heart of this community is religion.
Welcome on this beautiful Sabbath morning.
A Christian faith based on the Book of Mormon preached this Sunday to 400 people. This is a sacred service and one that's never before been captured on camera.
I want you to keep the faith, keep our faith. Our faith is just as right and proper and good and precious and dear to us as anybody's faith in religion ever was.
But while Winston preaches about a right and proper faith, BC's Supreme Court is hearing a very different side of that religion. The crux of the argument, for some, is that polygamy quashes an individual's rights. Does it?
I don't believe it does, and I don't believe that it does any more than monogamy does.
But Teresa Wall didn't feel like she had many rights. In her video testimony heard at the trial, she recounts how she grew up in a polygamist family in Utah. How at 13 she was told she had to marry the prophet, 70 years her senior, and how, when she refused, she was sent to Bountiful.
a lot of girls getting sent out to get married, lots of cases of kids that they considered rebellious sent to Canada.
According to Teresa, by 17, Winston was pressuring her to get married.
Winston had basically said, either you're getting married this weekend or we're kicking you out.
Teresa's story isn't unique. Other women who have left the church testified of abuse, control, and an intense fear of outsiders. Brenda Jensen is Winston's cousin.
We were terrified of you. You were going to rape us. The men were going to rape and steal our children and steal us and rape all the women and murder the husbands. And it was horrible. You guys were horrible.
And then there was this. Evidence introduced late in the trial that included a list. A list, so says the prosecution, of 30 young girls who were shipped between Bountiful and the U.S. to be married between the late 90s and 2006. This new evidence has launched yet another police investigation. Corporal Dan Moskaluk speaks for the RCMP.
If we have evidence to support charges against a person who was transporting these girls under the ages of 18 across the Canadian border for the purpose of illicit sexual activity or for the purpose of marriage, those people who were involved in the transportation, the arrangements of getting these girls across, also could face charges.
When the RCMP come to your house and knock on your door to investigate this alleged child trafficking, will there be any ties to you?
For child trafficking?
That's what the allegations point to. Some 30 kids up until 2006.
I don't know who they would be.
Do you have any connection to that?
Child trafficking?
Yes. That's what the allegations are. Up to 30 children, underage, being sent to the U.S. to be married.
I don't think so. I don't know what that would be.
Well, it would be an underage girl, somebody under 18, sent to the United States to be wed. I could only assume in a plural marriage.
Nah. It's got nothing to do with me.
Even if Winston is not tied to the trafficking of underage brides, some are still critical of his marriage to 3 15-year-olds in the late 90s. And while we were filming in Bountiful, social services made a surprise visit to interview the women, now mothers in their late 20s. You could be in hot water. You did marry 3 15-year-olds, 2 who still live in Bountiful, some 13 years ago.
Yeah, but in my whole life, I have never, ever gone and chased any 15-year-olds. And just because you may have somebody who's that age in your life doesn't mean you've touched them. You know, I absolutely was not driving my ship in my life back in those days. I mean, we did what we were directed to do.
Meaning those girls were assigned to you?
Yeah, no. I mean, I had absolutely nothing to do with it.
You couldn't have said no?
No, actually couldn't have.
What if you had said no? What would have happened?
That way, I mean, I would have got the boot instead of been able to leave.
Meaning they would have kicked you out of the church?
Oh, yeah.
Today, Winston claims that's changed, and that at least on his side, no one underage has been married since the split.
Oh, Lord, my God, when
So is polygamy itself the cause of these ills? Winston would say no, but others strongly disagree. Right now, Canada is on the cusp of a momentous decision. If the polygamy law is struck down, it will be an historic shift. But if it is upheld, history too could be made, and Winston Blackmore could be headed to jail.
How great